she's kind of just dealing with life. And in this beginning part, before all of this stuff happens, she is dealing with dry hair. And it's itchy, and there's this oil that she uses to, you know, it's rose oil. You know, we can all imagine what it does. It moisturizes her hair. And so she's in the market with her mother. Her mother is a market woman, and she is trying to figure out how to get to the rose oil, because apparently the woman who sells the rose oil in the market, she moves around. You know, some days she's here, some days she's there. And this day, where Zara really needs this rose oil, she happens to be in a part of the market called the dark market. The idea I got the idea for the dark market with my experiences with especially markets in Nigeria. They tend to be places where you can find anything if you knew where to look for it, even some really shady stuff. So the oil lady is stationed in the dark market, which is the part of the market where people sell shady things. You know, you just don't go there. Every parent tells their kids never ever to go there. That's where people sell drugs and poison and all kinds of stuff. So so Zara, she is contemplating whether she should go, and eventually, of course, she goes. So this is the part that I'm going to read is just maybe about a few pages where she actually ventures into the dark market. This was it. Between a woman selling smoked owl meat and the man selling candy birds, there was a break in the tarp. The tarp is the entrance to the dark market. An entrance covered by a veil that fluttered in the soft breeze. I slowly walked towards the dark market entrance. I gazed up at the 10-foot entrance and looked behind me, and then at the woman selling owl meat. I wrinkled my nose. The meat she was selling didn't smell very tasty at all. She wasn't paying any attention to me. Good, I thought. No one's watching. I reached out and touched the veil. Dari was right. That's her best friend. It did feel as if it were made from the finest silk. Hundreds of people must have pushed it aside every day, and there wasn't an oil stain or tear on any part of it. I went in. The market that I had known all my life was open air. Everything was out and under the sun. But this part of the market, the dark market, was surrounded by a group of high trees. The large blackish-green tarp hung from the trees, blocking out the sun. Circles had even been cut to let the trees grow through. I stopped for a moment, waiting for my eyes to adjust to the dimness of the shade. Now I knew where the dark market got its name. Did I want the hair oil this much? I thought, considering turning back. But I was curious. I thought about what Dari had said about seeing for yourself if it was so bad, and I had to agree with him. I blinked and looked around, hearing my mother's voice in my head. The dark market is where thieves, con artists, evil magicians, and shady people do business. There are things there that you can't explain. Some are fascinating, but most are dangerous. Keep your distance from that place, Zara. That was what my mother had told me years ago when she first brought me to the market. A lot of good her advice had done. I knew the market was not safe, and yet there I stood. I was scared and already felt guilty, but my legs began to move. Feathers of different shades and sizes from the bird section blew around me as I took my first steps into the dark market. Once I was under the tarp, the air grew stuffy. The dark market must have a lot to hide, I thought, with a shiver of anticipation. The air seemed to grow clearer as I moved farther in. That was when I understood. The dark market was only for those who wished to enter, not for cowardly outsiders. I stopped and looked around, taking it all in. I crossed my arms around my chest as if to protect myself. I felt shivers of rebellious excitement. Above me, the green tarp billowed with the gentle breeze. There was a small nest of green toucans in one of the trees' lower dead branches. They whistled and chattered loudly, but no one seemed to notice them except me. Like the rest of the market, the red dirt path before me was narrow, with booths and tables set close to one another on both sides. To my left, a man with a patch over his left eye and tightly braided cornrows stood behind a table selling live vultures. Some of the vultures stood miserably on the table, their talons clacking whenever they took a step, and others were perched on thick black sticks. What do people do with vultures, I wondered, looking at the birds' oily black wings, vulnerably bald necks, and red heads. They can't possibly eat them. Ugh. I rubbed my arms, frowning with disgust. Vultures live on the dead and decaying. The man grinned at me as I passed, and I saw that all his teeth were stained green. I bit my lip. In school, we learned about drugs and how terrible they were, but never had I met or even seen anyone who actually did them. Until then, this man was probably addicted to mystic moss. I politely smiled back, hoping I didn't look as scared as I felt. Next to him, a root woman waited to tell futures. Now, root workers I had seen before. This one was dressed in a wide, bright orange billowing dress with hundreds of tiny style mirrors embedded all over. She clicked with every move. It was quite a lovely and civilized dress, and probably very expensive. I was glad she was in the process of telling someone's future. Root workers have a reputation for harassing passers-by by shouting one's most embarrassing problems until one gave in to having his or her future told. Plus, the preoccupation with her customer gave me a chance to get a good look at her dress. I passed a man who illustrated ghosts. Update that portrait of your beloved passed-on relative. You bring them, I draw them. Only one flower each, he announced. Two women were selling different colored dung-scented inks. A man claimed he could exorcise haunted computers, and of course I saw several people selling the worst kinds of poisons. Poisons that cause a slow death, instant death, amnesia, comas, terrible pain, the loss of one's mind, a loss of physical control, and the most horrible hallucinations. I didn't pass too many booths selling antidotes, though. The heavy air must have changed since with every 10 steps I took. From camel dung to scented oil to the incense, flowers, to garbage, it was all very exotic, though I was still afraid. I was beginning to understand why Dari would go there despite all the warnings. Imagine what you could buy with just one tiny Petri flower. Still, I didn't see the oil lady anywhere, so I walked farther in. The people shopping in the dark market were of every type: men, women, young, old, tall, short, happy, sad-looking, nervous like me, and bold as they went their way. The only thing they all had in common was that no one made eye contact, and everyone walked quickly with a strong look of purpose. It seemed that everyone wanted to be there, but no longer than he or she had to. I crept along trying to stay as far from each stand as possible. The merchants seemed to be selling stranger and stranger items the farther into the market I got. I was quickly losing my courage. A man selling brown toads the size of dogs didn't even make a move when one of his toads flicked its tongue at a fly zooming an inch past my face. Such toads were used for ridding homes of flies, ants, and spiders, and were employed for only the worst infestations. Dari had heard terrible stories about these toads eating small children. I sneezed as I walked past three men selling personal pepper seeds. I paused, contemplating buying one. It would be nice if I had more friends, I thought, or at least have people be nicer to me. Then I shook my head. What am I thinking? I shouldn't even be here. And how bad would it be if I actually buy something, too? Before I could ask someone where the oil lady was stationed, I was cursed at by a caged wood rat, solicited by a computer with a large flowering monitor that claimed to channel another world through the network, and then hit by a spout of water from a singing fish swimming in a large green half-pod filled with water. The seller next to the pod had laughed loudly, and the pink fish lifted its mouth out of the water to sing a tune that, despite my shock, I had to admit was quite pretty. My hands were shaking as I walked up to the first person that I got a good feeling about. "Excuse me, madam, can you tell me where the oil lady might be today?" I asked. Stepping up to a tall woman with dark brown skin, she leaned against a tree smoking a cigarette. Her head was shaved so close that she looked bald. She had a strange, elaborate symbol tattooed just below her neck. Behind her were several peaceful-looking large baboons sitting cross-legged on the ground.